He froze in the hospital corridor. The woman standing before him, white coat, professional smile, was the ghost he'd buried 7 months ago. But she wasn't a ghost anymore. She was pregnant, glowing, untouchable, and she was looking at him like he was nothing. His new girlfriend waited in the exam room. His ex stood in the doorway. And between them, a secret that could destroy everything. The baby in her belly, was it his? Or had she already moved on? This is the story of the man who walked away from love, and the woman who became a queen without him. The city never slept, and neither did he. Min-jun had built his empire on silence and fear. At 32, he controlled half the underground trade routes in the city, commanded loyalty with a glance, and buried enemies before they could say his name. But none of that prepared him for this. The hospital corridor smelled like antiseptic and regret. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. His new girlfriend, Hana, walked ahead of him, heels clicking softly against tile. She'd asked him to come with her for a routine checkup. Something small, nothing serious. He'd agreed because it seemed simple, because it didn't require thinking, because thinking meant remembering. And he'd spent 7 months trying not to remember her. Mr. Choi? A nurse appeared, clipboard in hand. Dr. Park will see you now. Hana smiled at him, sweet, trusting, 26 and still believing the world was kind. Min-jun followed her into the exam room, and his world stopped. The woman standing by the window wore a white coat. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun. Her hands rested on a clipboard, professional and steady. But it was her profile that gutted him, the curve of her cheek, the set of her shoulders, the way she breathed like the air owed her nothing. Dr. Park. She turned. Their eyes met. For 3 seconds, the universe held its breath. Her face didn't change. Not a flicker, not a flinch. She looked at him the way a surgeon looks at an X-ray. Clinical, detached, mildly curious. Mr. Choi, she said, her voice smooth as glass. Please, have a seat. Hana sat down, oblivious. Min-jun remained standing, because his legs had forgotten how to move. Dr. Park. No, not Dr. Park. Seo-yeon. Her name was Seo-yeon. He'd whispered it 1,000 times in the dark. He'd carved it into his ribs when he left. And now she stood in front of him like a stranger. Except she wasn't a stranger. She was pregnant. The curve of her belly was subtle, but unmistakable beneath her coat. 5 months? Maybe 6? Min-jun's mind did the math in half a second. 7 months since he'd walked away. 5 months pregnant. 2 months after. His chest tightened. Is something wrong, Mr. Choi? Seo-yeon's voice cut through the silence. Calm. Controlled. A blade wrapped in silk. No, he managed. His voice sounded foreign. Hana glanced between them, confused. Do you two know each other? Seo-yeon's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. We've met. That was all. No explanation. No context. Just 3 words that erased 2 years of shared history. Min-jun felt something crack inside him. Seo-yeon moved efficiently, asking Hana questions about her symptoms, checking her chart, typing notes into the computer. She didn't look at him again, not once. And somehow that was worse than anything she could have said. When the appointment ended, Hana thanked her warmly. Seo-yeon smiled. Professional, distant, perfect. Take care, she said. Not to both of them, just to Hana. Min-jun walked out of that room like a man walking away from a car crash. Outside, Hana linked her arm through his. She seemed nice. A little cold, maybe, but nice. Min-jun didn't answer, because nice wasn't the word. Devastating was the word. Unreachable was the word. Pregnant with someone else's child was the word. He drove Hana home in silence, kissed her forehead at the door, promised to call her tomorrow. Then he sat in his car for an hour, staring at nothing. His phone buzzed. A text from one of his men. Meeting at the warehouse. Urgent. Min-jun didn't move. For the first time in his life, the empire didn't matter. Because 7 months ago, he'd made a choice. He'd chosen safety over risk. Power over vulnerability. The devil he knew over the heaven he didn't deserve. He'd told Seo-yeon it wasn't going to work. That his world was too dangerous. That she deserved better. And she'd looked at him with eyes full of broken trust and said nothing. Just turned and walked away. He'd let her. Now she was back. Not back to him. No, she was beyond him. She'd become someone he didn't recognize. A doctor. Successful. Glowing with new life. And she'd looked at him like he was a stranger. Min-jun started the car. He told himself he wouldn't go back. But he knew himself better than that. 3 days later. He stood outside the hospital at 9 p.m. leaning against his car. He'd learned her schedule. Doctor, Seo-yeon Park, OB/GYN, renowned in her field. She finished her shift at 9, walked to her car alone, drove to a quiet neighborhood on the east side. When she emerged from the building, her white coat was gone. She wore a soft gray sweater and dark jeans. Her hand rested protectively on her belly. She saw him immediately. Her steps didn't falter. She walked past him without a word. Seo-yeon. She stopped. Didn't turn around. I need to talk to you. No, she said quietly. You don't. Please. The word felt like glass in his throat. She turned then, slowly. Her eyes were calm. Too calm. What do you want, Minjun? The sound of his name in her mouth. God, it still hurt. Is it mine? The question hung between them like smoke. Seo-yeon tilted her head. Her expression didn't change. Does it matter? Yes. Why? Because he couldn't breathe. Because he'd been drowning for 7 months. Because seeing her pregnant with someone else's child was killing him in ways he didn't know were possible. But he didn't say any of that. I deserve to know. Seo-yeon smiled. It was the saddest thing he'd ever seen. You don't deserve anything from me, Minjun. She turned and walked to her car. He didn't follow. Because she was right. Seo-yeon didn't cry. She'd stopped crying 7 months ago, the night Minjun told her he couldn't love her the way she deserved. She'd cried then, quietly, alone, in the darkness of her apartment, and when the sun rose, she'd made a decision. She would rebuild herself. Not for him, not in spite of him, for her. Medical school had been brutal. The hours, the pressure, the constant weight of other people's lives in her hands, but she'd thrived in it, because pain was familiar, because hard work didn't lie. And then, 2 months after Minjun left, she'd discovered she was pregnant. She'd stood in her bathroom, staring at the test, and felt the world tilt. For one terrible moment, she'd wanted to call him. Then she remembered the way he'd looked at her that night, like loving her was a weakness he couldn't afford. So she didn't call. She went to work the next day, and the day after that. She became the best OB/GYN in the hospital. She attended conferences, published research, built a reputation that had nothing to do with the man who'd left her, and she carried his child in silence, because he'd made his choice. Now he stood in her parking lot, asking if it was his. The audacity of it almost made her laugh. At home, Seo-yeon made tea and sat by the window. The baby kicked. She rested her hand on her belly, feeling the small flutter of life beneath her skin. It's okay, she whispered. We're okay. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Please. I need to know. She stared at the message for a long time. Then she blocked the number. Minjun couldn't stop thinking about her. He sat in his office, a sleek penthouse overlooking the city, surrounded by power and money and men who feared him. None of it mattered. Hana called. He didn't answer. His second in command, Jay, knocked on the door. Boss, the shipment, handle it. Jay hesitated. You sure? Minjun looked at him. Do I look unsure? Jay left. Minjun poured himself a drink, stared at the skyline. 7 months ago, he'd convinced himself that leaving Seo-yeon was the right thing to do. His world was blood and bullets. She was light and life. Keeping her close would have painted a target on her back, so he'd walked away. And now she was pregnant, with someone else. The thought was acid in his veins. He grabbed his phone, called his most trusted man. Find out everything about Dr. Seo-yeon Park, who she's been seeing, where she goes, who the father is. A pause. Boss? You sure? Do it. 2 weeks later, Minjun sat in his car outside Seo-yeon's apartment. Jay had given him the report that morning. Dr. Seo-yeon Park. Age 29, graduated top of her class. No known romantic relationships in the past 7 months. No male visitors, lives alone, attends prenatal appointments alone. No father listed on any medical records. Minjun read the report 3 times. Then he drove to her apartment. He didn't knock. He waited. At 7 p.m., her door opened. Seo-yeon stepped out carrying a bag of groceries. She froze when she saw him. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she walked toward him. Are you following me now? Her voice was quiet, controlled, but there was fire beneath it. I need to know the truth. You already know the truth, Minjun. You just don't want to believe it. Tell me it's not mine. Seo-yeon looked at him, really looked at him. Her eyes were dark and endless. Why does it matter? Because He stopped. The words tangled in his throat. Because you what? She pressed. Because you care? Because you regret leaving? Because you think you have a right to my life? Because I never stopped. Don't. The word was sharp, Final. Don't say things you don't mean. Don't pretend 7 months of silence doesn't exist. Don't stand here and act like you're the victim. Minjun felt something break. I left because I thought I was protecting you. Seo-yeon laughed. It was bitter and bright. You left because you were afraid. Don't dress it up as noble. You were terrified of what loving me meant. So you ran. She stepped closer. And now you want answers? Fine, here's your answer. This baby is mine. Mine to raise. Mine to love. Mine to protect. You don't get to claim it just because your guilt finally caught up with you. Is it mine? He asked again, voice raw. Seo-yeon held his gaze. Even if it was, what difference would it make? She walked past him into her apartment and closed the door. Minjun stood in the hallway for 20 minutes. Then he left. But he didn't go home. He went to the one place that still made sense. The warehouse. His men. The empire he'd built with blood and will. Jay was waiting. Everything okay, boss? Minjun looked at him. No. Need me to handle something? Yeah. Minjun's voice was ice. I need you to protect someone. Jay frowned. Who? Dr. Seo-yeon Park. 24-hour surveillance. No one gets near her. No one touches her. If anyone tries, you bury them. Jay's eyes widened. Boss. That's an order. Jay nodded. Understood. Minjun walked out into the night. The city hummed around him. Neon lights, distant sirens, the pulse of a world that never stopped moving. But he was standing still, because 7 months ago, he'd made a choice. And now he had to live with it, even if it killed him. Seo-yeon felt the shift before she saw it. The man in the coffee shop who watched her a little too carefully. The black car that appeared on her street 3 nights in a row. The subtle, suffocating presence of being observed. She knew Minjun's world well enough to recognize his hand in it. He was having her followed. She should have been angry. Instead, she felt something worse. Tired. Tired of carrying this alone. Tired of pretending she didn't think about him every time the baby kicked. Tired of being strong when all she wanted was to break. But she didn't break. She went to work, delivered 2 babies that week, smiled at patients, wrote careful notes in charts, and ignored the shadows following her home. Minjun watched from a distance. Jay sent reports every night. She's safe, no incidents, no threats. It should have been enough. It wasn't, because safe didn't mean happy. Safe didn't mean she wasn't carrying his child alone. Safe didn't erase the fact that he was the reason she looked so tired. Hana had started asking questions. You've been distant, she said one night over dinner. Minjun looked at her. Sweet Hana, 26 and hopeful. She deserved someone who could love her without ghosts. I'm sorry, he said. Is it work? Yeah. She didn't believe him. He could see it in her eyes. But she didn't push, because people who got close to Minjun learned quickly. You didn't push. 3 weeks later. Seo-yeon's water broke at 2 a.m. She was alone. She called a taxi, grabbed her hospital bag, breathed through the contractions. By the time she reached the hospital, the pain was blinding. Her colleagues rushed her into delivery. She was a doctor. She knew what was happening, but knowing didn't make it easier. The baby was early, 5 weeks early. Complications. Seo-yeon lay in the delivery room, monitors beeping, nurses moving with controlled urgency, and all she could think was, I'm alone. Not because there was no one in the room, but because the one person she'd wanted beside her had chosen to leave. Minjun got the call at 3 a.m. Jay's voice was tight. Boss, she's at the hospital. Emergency delivery. Minjun was out the door before Jay finished the sentence. He drove like the devil was chasing him, ran 3 red lights, didn't care. When he burst into the hospital, a nurse tried to stop him. Sir, you can't. Where is Dr. Park? I'm sorry, but where is she? The nurse flinched, pointed down the hall. Minjun ran. He found the delivery room, saw Seo-yeon through the window. She was pale, shaking, surrounded by medical staff, and she was pushing. Minjun's world narrowed to that single image. The woman he loved bringing life into the world. Alone. A nurse stepped out of the room, saw him. Are you family? Minjun couldn't speak. Sir? Is she okay? The nurse's expression softened. The baby's in distress. We're doing everything we can. Minjun felt his knees buckle. He leaned against the wall, closed his eyes, and prayed to a god he'd stopped believing in years ago. Please, please let them be okay. 20 minutes later, a sound filled the corridor. A baby's cry. Thin, fragile, but alive. Minjun's chest caved in. The door opened. A doctor stepped out, pulling off gloves. It's a girl, she said. Premature but stable. She'll need to stay in the NICU for a while. And Dr. Park? Exhausted, but she'll be fine. Minjun nodded, couldn't speak. The doctor studied him. Are you the father? The question hung in the air like smoke. Minjun looked through the window, saw Seo-yeon lying on the bed, tears streaming down her face, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in white. I don't know, he whispered. The doctor frowned. You don't know? Minjun met her eyes. I left before I could find out. The doctor's expression hardened. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Minjun walked away. But he didn't leave the hospital. He sat in the waiting room all night. Because even if he didn't have the right to be there, even if Seo-yeon would never forgive him, he needed to know they were safe. At dawn, Seo-yeon woke. A nurse was checking her vitals. How's my baby? Her voice was hoarse. She's strong, fighting, just like her mother. Seo-yeon closed her eyes. Relief washed over her. Has anyone... She stopped, hated herself for asking. Has anyone been here? The nurse hesitated. There was a man. He's been in the waiting room all night. Tall, dark suit. Looked like he hadn't slept in days. Seo-yeon's heart. Do you want me to send him away? Seo-yeon stared at the ceiling. She should say yes. She should protect herself. Build walls. Keep him out. But she was so tired of being strong. No, she whispered. Let him stay. Minjun sat in the waiting room as the sun rose. The hospital came alive slowly. Nurses changed shifts. Doctors walked past with coffee. The fluorescent lights seemed less harsh in the morning, but they still hummed with that same clinical indifference. He hadn't moved in 6 hours. His suit was wrinkled. His tie hung loose. He looked like a man who'd been through a war. In some ways, he had. A nurse approached him, the same one from earlier. Her expression was softer now, less guarded. She's awake, the nurse said quietly. Dr. Park, she's asking for you. Minjun's head snapped up. She is? The nurse nodded. Room 314. But sir, she hesitated. Be gentle. She's been through a lot. Minjun stood. His legs felt strange, like they belonged to someone else. I will. He walked down the corridor slowly. Each step felt heavier than the last. Because this wasn't just about seeing Seo-yeon. This was about facing everything he'd done, everything he'd destroyed. Room 314 was at the end of the hall. He stopped outside the door, took a breath, knocked softly. Come in. Her voice. God, he'd missed her voice. Minjun pushed the door open. Seo-yeon sat propped up in bed, pillows behind her back. She looked pale, exhausted, beautiful in a way that made his chest ache. Her hair was loose around her shoulders. She wore a hospital gown.
안녕, 여러분. Before you continue, if this story touched something in you, you should know I didn't tell everything yet. The complete version has 20 full audio episodes. No interruptions, no ads. Just the story, the emotions, and the moments I couldn't fit in here. If you scan the QR code on your screen, or tap the link in the pinned comment, to continue listening right now.
Her hands rested on her stomach, which was now flatter but still soft. She looked at him with those dark, endless eyes. You stayed, she said. Not a question, a statement. I stayed. Silence stretched between them. Not comfortable, not hostile, just heavy. Why? She asked finally. Minjun stepped into the room, closed the door behind him. I needed to know you were okay. I'm okay. And the baby? Something flickered across Seo-yeon's face. Pain, love, fierce protection. She's fighting. The doctors say she's strong. She just needs time. Can I see her? Seo-yeon studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. The NICU is on the 4th floor. But Minjun, she stopped him with a look. Seeing her doesn't give you rights. It doesn't erase what you did. It doesn't make you her father. The words were knives, but he deserved every cut. I know. Seo-yeon turned her face toward the window. Morning light spilled across her features, highlighting the exhaustion, the quiet strength, the devastating beauty that had always been her weapon. Then why are you here? Because I can't stay away. She looked at him then, really looked at him. And for the first time since he'd walked into that exam room weeks ago, he saw something other than ice in her eyes. He saw hurt. You stayed away for 7 months, Minjun. You walked away like I meant nothing. Like we meant nothing. What changed? I saw you. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. Seo-yeon closed her eyes. A single tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly, like it was a weakness she couldn't afford. I rebuilt my life without you, she said quietly. I became someone who didn't need you. I carried this baby alone. I prepared to raise her alone. I made peace with the fact that you were gone. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. I know. Another silence. Longer this time. Then Seo-yeon spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. She's yours. Minjun's world stopped. What? The baby. She's yours, Minjun. I've known since the day I found out I was pregnant. And I never told you because you made it clear you didn't want this. You didn't want us. Minjun felt like the floor had opened beneath him. He had a daughter fighting for her life in the NICU, a daughter he'd never known about. He sank into the chair beside Seo-yeon's bed, put his head in his hands. Why didn't you tell me? Because you left. I would have come back. Would you? Seo-yeon's voice was sharp now. Would you really? Or would you have stayed out of obligation, out of guilt? I didn't want that, Min. I didn't want you to come back because you had to. I wanted you to come back because you chose to. I'm here now. 7 months too late. Minjun looked up at her. His eyes were red. He looked broken in a way she'd never seen before. Let me make it right. You can't. Let me try. Seo-yeon shook her head. I don't know if I can trust you again. Then let me earn it. She laughed. It was bitter and broken. Do you even know what that means? Earning trust? It means showing up. Every day. Even when it's hard. Even when you're scared. Even when your world is falling apart. Can you do that? Yes. You say that now. But what happens when reality sets in? When you remember why you left in the first place? When your enemies figure out you have a weakness? They won't touch you. You can't promise that. I can, and I will. Seo-yeon met his gaze. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she sighed. Exhaustion settled over her like a blanket. Go see your daughter, Minjun. Then leave. I need to rest. Seo-yeon, please. The word was quiet. Final. Minjun stood, walked to the door, stopped. I never stopped loving you, he said without turning around. Not for a single day. He left before she could respond. The NICU was a world unto itself, quiet, controlled, filled with tiny miracles and fragile hope. Minjun stood outside the glass, looking at the rows of incubators. A nurse guided him to one in the corner. She's right here, the nurse said gently. Minjun looked down and saw his daughter for the first time. She was so small, impossibly small. Wires and tubes connected to her tiny body. A miniature heart monitor beeped softly. Her eyes were closed. Her chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. But she was alive, and she was perfect. Minjun's knees nearly gave out. He pressed his hand against the glass, felt tears he didn't know he had left sliding down his face. Can I touch her? His voice broke. The nurse hesitated. You'll need to scrub in first, and you can only stay a few minutes. She needs rest. I understand. 5 minutes later, Minjun sat beside the incubator, wearing a sterile gown and gloves. The nurse showed him how to reach through the openings, how to touch gently without disturbing the wires. Minjun placed one finger against his daughter's palm. She was warm, so impossibly warm. Her tiny fingers curled around his, and Minjun broke. He sat there crying silently, holding his daughter's hand, whispering promises he didn't know if he could keep. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I didn't know. But I'm here now, and I swear to you, I swear on everything I have, I will protect you. I will keep you safe. I will be the father you deserve. The baby didn't respond, but her fingers held tight, and that was enough. Minjun left the hospital at noon. He didn't go home, didn't go to the office. He went to the warehouse. Jay was waiting. So were 8 of his most trusted men. Boss, Jay started, we need to talk about I have a daughter. Everyone stopped. Jay blinked. What? Dr. Park, the woman you've been protecting. She had my daughter last night. Premature. She's in the NICU. Silence. Then one of the men spoke. Boss, does this mean? It means everything changes. Minjun's voice was iron. As of this moment, Dr. Park and my daughter are under our highest level of protection. No one, and I mean no one, gets near them without my approval. If anyone tries, you don't ask questions. You don't wait for orders. You end them. Jay nodded slowly. Understood. But boss, if word gets out that you have a family, I know. Your enemies will see them as targets. I know. We'll need to increase security, change protocols, maybe even relocate them. Do whatever it takes. Jay studied his boss. Are you sure about this? Minjun met his eyes. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Seo-yeon woke to find flowers on her bedside table. White lilies, her favorite. There was no card, she didn't need one. A nurse came in to check her vitals. You have a visitor, she said, but she insisted on waiting until you were awake. The door opened. A woman walked in, mid-50s, elegant, wearing a tailored dress and pearls. Her hair was silver and perfectly styled. Seo-yeon recognized her immediately. Mrs. Choi, Min-jun's mother. The woman who had made it very clear, 7 months ago, that Seo-yeon was not suitable for her son. Mrs. Choi smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Dr. Park, I heard about the baby. Congratulations. Seo-yeon sat up straighter. What are you doing here? I wanted to see for myself. Mrs. Choi moved closer, her heels clicking on the tile floor. My son tells me the child is his. She is. I see. Mrs. Choi's gaze was calculating, cold. And you plan to raise her alone, without informing the father? I made the choice I thought was best. For whom? Yourself? Or my grandchild? Seo-yeon's jaw tightened. I did what any mother would do. I protected my daughter from a world that would destroy her. My son's world. Yes. Mrs. Choi was quiet for a moment. Then she sat down in the chair Min-jun had occupied hours earlier. I won't pretend I approve of this, she said carefully. 7 months ago, I told my son that you were a distraction, that you would make him weak, that his enemies would use you against him. I remember. I was right. Seo-yeon felt anger flare in her chest. I came here to tell you that despite everything, you are now the mother of my grandchild. And that changes things. Seo-yeon frowned. What are you saying? Mrs. Choi folded her hands in her lap. I'm saying that whether I like it or not, you are now part of this family. And we protect our own. I don't need your protection. You do. You just don't know it yet. Mrs. Choi stood. My son has enemies, Dr. Park. Dangerous men who would kill you and your daughter without hesitation if they knew you existed. You can hate us. You can refuse Min-jun's help, but you cannot refuse reality. Seo-yeon's heart pounded. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you. Mrs. Choi's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Accept our protection. Let my son keep you safe, or watch everything you love burn. She walked to the door. Stopped. One more thing. If you truly love your daughter, you'll put aside your pride and let Min-jun be her father. Because in our world, children without protection are targets. And I won't let my grandchild become collateral damage in someone else's war. She left. Seo-yeon sat in the silence, shaking, because Mrs. Choi was right. She'd spent 7 months convincing herself she could do this alone, but she'd been lying to herself. The world Min-jun lived in, the world her daughter was born into, didn't care about pride or independence. It only cared about power. And right now, she had none. That night, Seo-yeon asked the nurse to wheel her to the NICU. She sat beside her daughter's incubator, watching the tiny chest rise and fall. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry I brought you into this. I'm sorry your father's world is dangerous. I'm sorry I can't protect you from it. The baby slept. Seo-yeon touched the glass. But I promise you this. I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe, even if it means letting him back in, even if it breaks me. A nurse approached quietly. Dr. Park, you should rest. Just a few more minutes. The nurse nodded and left. Seo-yeon stayed until dawn, and when the sun rose, she made a decision. She would let Min-jun try. Not because she trusted him, but because their daughter deserved a fighting chance. Min-jun received the text at 3 a.m. Come to the hospital. We need to talk. Swahi was there in 15 minutes. The hospital was quieter at night. Only the essential staff moved through the corridors. Emergency lights cast everything in soft amber. Min-jun took the stairs to the 3rd floor, his heart hammering. When he reached room 314, Seo-yeon was sitting up in bed, fully awake. She looked better than yesterday. Color had returned to her cheeks. Her eyes were clearer, but there was something else there too. Resolve. You came, she said. You called. Seo-yeon gestured to the chair. Sit. Min-jun sat. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was different now. Less hostile. More resigned. Your mother came to see me, Seo-yeon said finally. Min-jun's jaw tightened. I didn't send her. I know, but she made some valid points. Such as? Seo-yeon met his eyes. That our daughter is a target, that I can't protect her alone, that pride is a luxury I can't afford anymore. Min-jun leaned forward. What are you saying? I'm saying, she took a breath. I'm saying I'll let you try. I'll let you be her father. I'll accept your protection, but I have conditions. Name them. First, you don't make decisions about her without consulting me. I'm her mother. My voice matters. Agreed. Second, you don't expose her to your world. I don't care how powerful you are or how careful you think you can be. She stays away from all of it. Agreed. Third, if I ever feel she's in danger because of you, I leave and you don't stop me. Minjun hesitated. Seo-yeon, those are my terms. Take them or leave them. He looked at her. This woman who had carried his child alone, who had built a life without him, who was now offering him a chance he didn't deserve. I take them. Seo-yeon nodded. Then we have a deal. But I have a condition of my own. She raised an eyebrow. You're in no position to make demands. It's not a demand. It's a request. What? Move in with me. Seo-yeon laughed. The sound was sharp. Absolutely not. Hear me out. No, Minjun, I'm not playing house with you. I'm not pretending we're a happy family. I'm letting you be part of her life, that's all. It's not about us. It's about safety. Minjun's voice was urgent now. My penthouse has security, guards, surveillance, everything you'd need to keep her safe. Your apartment is exposed. One entrance. No protection. If someone wanted to get to you, your mother already played this card. Because it's true. Minjun leaned closer. I know you don't trust me. I know I don't deserve your trust. But please, for her sake, consider it. Seo-yeon was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. If I agree to this, we set boundaries. Separate rooms, separate lives. You're there for security. Nothing more. Whatever you need. And when she's old enough, when it's safe, I leave. The words hurt. But Minjun nodded. When it's safe, Seo-yeon studied him, searching for lies, for manipulation, for any sign of the man who had left her 7 months ago. But all she saw was desperation, and fear, and something that looked almost like hope. Fine, she said quietly. We'll try it your way. 3 days later, Seo-yeon was discharged. The baby, still unnamed, still fighting, would stay in the NICU for at least another month, maybe longer. The doctors were cautiously optimistic but careful with their promises. Minjun's penthouse was everything Seo-yeon expected and more. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, marble floors, modern furniture in blacks and grays, art on the walls that probably cost more than her medical school tuition. It was beautiful. It was soulless. Your room is down the hall, Minjun said, carrying her bag. The master suite. I'll take the guest room. You don't have to. I do. He showed her the space. It was enormous. A king bed, a sitting area, a bathroom bigger than her entire apartment, everything immaculate and untouched. There's a nursery next door, Minjun added quietly. I had it set up yesterday. You can change anything you want. Seo-yeon walked to the nursery. It was perfect. Soft cream walls, a white crib, shelves waiting for books and toys, a rocking chair by the window. Everything a baby could need. Everything except the baby. Seo-yeon felt tears prick her eyes. It's beautiful, she whispered. Minjun stood in the doorway. I wasn't sure what you'd want. The designer said I could change. It's perfect. Silence. Then Seo-yeon turned to face him. Thank you. Minjun nodded. Get some rest. I'll make dinner. You cook? A ghost of a smile. I've learned a few things. That night, they ate in awkward silence. Minjun had made jjigae, Korean stew. It was good. Better than good. Seo-yeon ate slowly, watching him from across the table. When did you learn to cook? She asked. After you left. I didn't leave. You pushed me away. I know. He set down his spoon. I spent 7 months trying not to think about you. Cooking helped. Did it work? No. Seo-yeon looked away. We can't do this. Do what? Pretend like this is normal. Like we're just two people having dinner. We're not. I don't even know what we are. We're two people trying to protect our daughter. That's all? Minjun met her eyes. What do you want me to say, Seo-yeon? That I still love you? That I think about you every second of every day? That seeing you with our daughter made me realize I'd destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me? Seo-yeon's breath caught. I can say all of that, Minjun continued, his voice raw. But it won't change anything. Because you're right. I pushed you away. I chose fear over love. And now I have to live with that. Then why did you ask me to move in? Because I'm selfish. Because even if you hate me, at least you're here. At least I can see you. At least I can protect you. Seo-yeon stood abruptly. I need to go to bed. Seo-yeon. Good night, Minjun. She left him alone in the dining room. Minjun sat in the silence, staring at his half-finished meal. This was going to be harder than he thought. The days developed a rhythm. Minjun went to the hospital every morning, sat with his daughter, talked to her through the glass, changed her tiny diapers when the nurses allowed it, held her hand. Seo-yeon went in the afternoons. Sometimes they overlapped. Sometimes they didn't. When they did, they were cordial, professional. Two parents united by love for their child but divided by everything else. Jae managed Minjun's business in his absence. The empire didn't crumble without him, but it noticed his distraction, and so did his enemies. 2 weeks into their arrangement, Minjun came home to find Seo-yeon in the nursery, folding tiny clothes. She'd been shopping. The room was slowly coming to life. Stuffed animals, blankets, a mobile hanging above the crib. She still doesn't have a name, Seo-yeon said without looking up. Minjun leaned against the doorframe. I've been thinking about that. And? What about Jiwoo? Seo-yeon paused. Jiwoo. It means wisdom and rain. I thought, maybe it fits. She's wise enough to fight, strong enough to weather any storm. Seo-yeon felt something crack in her chest. Jiwoo, she repeated softly. I like it. Yeah? Yeah. Minjun smiled. A real smile. The first she'd seen in 7 months. And for just a moment, Seo-yeon remembered why she'd fallen in love with him in the first place. That night, Seo-yeon couldn't sleep. She walked to the living room, found Minjun standing by the window, glass of whiskey in hand. Can't sleep either? She asked. He turned. Too much on my mind. Want to talk about it? Not really. Seo-yeon poured herself water, sat on the couch. Your mother visited me again yesterday, she said. Minjun tensed. What did she want? To give me advice. About being part of your world. About protecting Jiwoo. What did she say? That love is a weakness your enemies will exploit. That if I care about our daughter, I'll learn to hide how much I love her. That showing emotion is dangerous. Minjun set down his glass. My mother lives in fear. She's been doing it for 40 years. Don't listen to her. But she's right, isn't she? About your world? My world. He stopped. Started again. My world is brutal, unforgiving, built on power and fear. But it's also the only world I know. The only world I can control. What if Jiwoo doesn't want that world? Then I'll give her a different one. How? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. Seo-yeon studied him. You really mean that? I do. She was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm scared, Minjun. Of what? Of this, of us, of what happens when Jiwoo comes home and reality sets in, of what happens if your enemies find out about us. Minjun crossed the room, sat beside her, not touching, just close. I'm scared too, he admitted. Every day. But I'm more scared of losing you again. Both of you. Seo-yeon looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth. He was broken, terrified, desperate, just like her. We're a mess, she whispered. Yeah, this is never going to work. Probably not. So why are we trying? Minjun met her eyes. Because she deserves parents who try, even if we fail. Seo-yeon felt tears slide down her cheeks. Minjun reached out slowly, wiped them away with his thumb. I'm sorry, he said, for everything, for leaving, for hurting you, for not being there when you needed me. I'm sorry too. For what? For not telling you about her, for shutting you out, for being too proud to ask for help. They sat in the silence, inches apart, carrying years of hurt between them. Can I hold you? Minjun asked quietly. Seo-yeon hesitated, then nodded. He pulled her close. She rested her head on his shoulder, and for the first time in 7 months, they both felt something other than pain. They felt hope. The next morning, Minjun's phone rang. Jae. Boss, we have a problem. Minjun stepped into his office. Closed the door. Talk. Kim Tae-young. Minjun's blood ran cold. Kim Tae-young, his oldest rival. The head of the Northern Syndicate. A man who'd been trying to destroy Minjun for 5 years. What about him? He knows. Knows what? About Dr. Park. About the baby. One of our men was compromised. He gave up intel before we could handle him. Minjun's world tilted. How much does he know? Enough. He knows about the hospital, the NICU, your penthouse. Everything. Where is he now? We don't know. He's gone dark. Minjun felt rage and terror collide in his chest. Find him. I don't care what it takes. Find him and end this. Boss. Now, Jae. Understood. Minjun hung up, stood in the silence of his office. Then he walked to the living room where Seo-yeon was reading. She looked up, saw his face. What's wrong? We need to move Jiwoo. Today. Seo-yeon stood. What? Why? Someone knows about her, about you, and they're coming. Fear flashed in her eyes. Who? Someone who wants to hurt me by destroying everything I love. Minjun, pack a bag. We're leaving in 30 minutes. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. Somewhere they'll never find us. Seo Yan grabbed his arm. What about Jiwoo? She's still in the NICU. We can't just... I'm arranging a private medical team to transport her. She'll be safe. You're sure? Minjun met her eyes. I promise you, on my life, I will keep you both safe. Seo Yan searched his face, then nodded. Okay, I trust you. The words hit harder than any bullet ever could, because she meant them, and he couldn't fail her again. They moved Jiwoo at midnight. A private ambulance, a team of neonatal specialists, equipment that rivaled any hospital. Minjun had arranged everything. Seo Yan rode in the ambulance with their daughter, watching monitors, holding the tiny hand, whispering promises. Minjun followed in an armored car with Jay and 4 guards. They drove for 3 hours, north, into the mountains, to a compound Minjun owned but rarely used. It was a fortress disguised as a luxury estate. High walls, armed guards, security systems that could detect a mouse at 50 yards. Seo Yan hated it immediately, but she couldn't argue with the logic. The medical team set up a full NICU in one of the guest houses. State-of-the-art equipment, 24-hour monitoring, everything Jiwoo needed. For the first week, Seo Yan barely left her daughter's side. Minjun brought her food, made sure she slept, took shifts watching Jiwoo so Seo Yan could shower. They didn't talk much, but they existed together. And somehow, that was enough. Jiwoo grew stronger each day. Her breathing improved. She started to gain weight. The doctors were optimistic. She's a fighter, one of them said, just like her parents. Seo Yan smiled at that. Minjun just nodded, because fighting was all they knew. 2 weeks at the compound. Seo Yan found Minjun in his office late one night. He was on the phone, speaking rapid Korean. His voice was hard, cold. She waited until he hung up. Everything okay? Minjun turned. He looked exhausted. We found Kim Taeyang. And? He's dead. Seo Yan's stomach dropped. You killed him. My men did. I gave the order. Minjun, he was going to hurt you. Hurt Jiwoo. I couldn't let that happen. Seo Yan sat down slowly. Is it over? For now, but there will be others. There always are. So what do we do? Minjun came around the desk, knelt in front of her, took her hands. I'm getting out. Seo Yan blinked. What? I'm leaving the business, selling my territory, cutting ties. I'm done. You can't just... I can, and I will, because I can't keep doing this. I can't keep putting you and Jiwoo in danger. I won't. Seo Yan stared at him. You're serious. I've never been more serious about anything. What will you do? I don't know. Start over. Build something clean, something safe, something our daughter can be proud of. Tears filled Seo Yan's eyes. That's all I ever wanted from you. I know. I'm sorry it took me this long to understand. She pulled him close, held him tight. And for the first time, she believed they might actually make it. 1 month later, Jiwoo was thriving. She'd gained weight. Her lungs were strong. The medical team cleared her for discharge. Seo Yan held her daughter for the first time without wires and tubes. It felt like a miracle. Minjun stood beside them, his hand on Seo Yan's shoulder, staring at their daughter with wonder. She's perfect, he whispered. She is. Jiwoo opened her eyes. Dark, alert, curious. She looked at her parents like she'd been waiting for this moment her whole life. Seo Yan laughed through tears. Hi, baby. We're your mom and dad. We're a little broken, but we love you more than anything. Minjun touched Jiwoo's tiny hand. She gripped his finger, and he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. That night, after Jiwoo was asleep in her crib, Seo Yan and Minjun sat on the terrace. The mountains stretched out before them. Stars filled the sky. I never thought we'd get here, Seo Yan said quietly. Neither did I. Are you scared? Terrified. She laughed softly. Me too. Minjun turned to her. I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I hurt you in ways I can never fix. But if you'll let me, I want to try. Not just for Jiwoo, for us. Seo Yan met his eyes. What are you saying? I'm saying I love you. I never stopped. And if you can find it in your heart to forgive me, to try again, I promise I'll spend the rest of my life proving I'm worth it. Seo Yan was quiet for a long time. Then she leaned forward, kissed him softly. I love you too, she whispered against his lips. I tried not to, but I do. Minjun pulled her close, kissed her deeply, and for the first time in 7 months, they both felt whole. 6 months later, Minjun had dismantled his empire piece by piece, sold his territory to neutral parties, paid off debts, cut ties with anyone connected to his old life. It wasn't easy. Some people didn't want to let him go, but Minjun was persuasive when he needed to be. He started a legitimate security company, used his connections for good instead of destruction. Seo-yeon returned to medicine part-time, worked from a private practice near the compound. They bought a house in the suburbs. Normal, safe, everything they'd never had before. Jiwoo grew bigger every day. She smiled. She laughed. She reached for her parents with tiny hands. And they built a life. Not perfect, but real. One evening, Minjun came home to find Seo-yeon in the kitchen, Jiwoo on her hip. "Someone came by today," Seo-yeon said casually. "Who?" "Your mother." Minjun tensed. What did she want? To meet her granddaughter. And? Seo-yeon smiled. She cried. It was actually kind of beautiful. Minjun relaxed. She say anything else? That she was wrong about me. That I've made you into a better man. That she's proud of you. Minjun felt something loosen in his chest. What did you say? I thanked her. And I invited her to dinner next week. Minjun crossed the kitchen, wrapped his arms around Seo-yeon and Jiwoo. I love you, he said. I love you too. Jiwoo giggled. They both laughed. And in that moment, everything was perfect. But across the city, in a dark office overlooking the river, a man watched a screen. On it, photos of Minjun, Seo-yeon, and Jiwoo. The man smiled, cold, calculating. So, he said to the figure standing in the shadows, the great Minjun Choi thinks he can just walk away, start over, pretend the past doesn't exist. What do you want us to do? The figure asked. The man leaned back in his chair. Nothing, yet. Let him think he's safe. Let him believe he's built something untouchable. And then? The man's smile widened. And then we show him that no one leaves this world. Not really. There's always a price. He touched the screen, traced Seo-yeon's face. And I'm going to collect. The man picked up his phone, dialed a number. It's me, he said. I have a job for you. What kind of job? The kind that destroys families. I want you to find out everything about Dr. Seo-yeon Park, her past, her secrets, her weaknesses. And when I find them, the man's eyes glinted in the darkness. We use them. Minjun Choi took something from me 7 years ago. Now I'm going to take everything from him. He hung up, stared at the photo of the happy family, and whispered, you should have stayed in the shadows, Minjun, because
you
the
already
light,
understand
that's
this isn't
where
just
monsters
another
hunt.
story. What you watched here is only a fragment. The full experience lives in 20 complete audio episodes, carefully told, with every detail, every emotion, every turning point. There are no ads, no interruptions, and nothing was removed like it is on YouTube. You can listen anytime on your phone with total privacy inside the members-only area. Scan the QR code on your screen now, or tap the link in the pinned comment to unlock the full story and continue listening immediately.